Dear Charlie Wade viewers, we're now showing longer episodes. We hope to meet your expectations and ensure you don't get bored with previous episodes. Don't forget to subscribe so you can easily find them on this channel. If you take a break, just remember the minute you're at to resume watching later. We're starting from chapter 2171 and beyond. Enjoy. Thank you.
Tianming and Honor father and son were very upset by Mr. Terrence's words. The real purpose of the father and son is to always bring Warnia to the board of directors of the Song Group in a different way. Whether Warnia is dead or alive, the Song Group's board of directors no longer have a slight relationship with her. However, how can they think that Warnia has been missing for so many days, and there are still people on the board of directors who are thinking about her? Moreover, Mr. Terrence's words quickly resonated with others. Everyone spoke one after another, expressing their agreement with Mr. Terrence's point of view. Tianming and Honor dared not speak. After all, the other board members didn't even know about them murdering Warnia. The attitude they are showing now is also regrettable, and they have to re-elect a new chairman for the sake of the Song Group. Therefore, Terrence said that even if they disagree 10,000 times in their hearts, they would never say the word no. As long as they say a no, it will immediately make people doubt their motives. And once someone doubts their motives, the other party will definitely suspect that Warnia's accident in Japan is inseparable from them. Therefore, Tianming could only grit his teeth and said, I think Mr. Terrence is very right. Since we have now decided to nominate a new chairman to preside over the overall situation, then we have to do a good job for Warnia, the former chairman. Prepare it with one hand. Having said that, he opened his mouth and said, Now, I propose that no matter who is elected as the new chairman, he must follow a principle, that is, once Ms. Warnia returns safely, the new chairman must unconditionally abdicate. Returning the position to her, do you have any comments? When everyone heard him say so, of course they nodded in agreement. This time a show of hands voted, all 17 people raised their hands. Tianming was even more annoyed, and he secretly thought, this FC king just bought me a time bomb. Now Warnia's life or death is unknown, the gods knows whether she is dead. In case she is not dead, she will come back alive someday. Am I doing all this for nothing? Thinking of this, Tianming sighed in his heart. It seems that the best solution now is to sell the assets immediately after taking office, just in case. So, he continued to speak. Now, let's proceed to the next vote, that is, we will nominate one person from the 17 of us to be the new chairman of the board. Among the 17 of us, anyone has the option to vote and be elected. The right to vote is limited to one vote per person, and the one with more votes will be our new chairman. After all, he added, because it is related to the position of the chairman of the board, it is very important to the Song Group, so we will adopt the real name voting system this time to prevent anyone from operating in the dark. Everyone looked at each other suddenly. In the board of directors, the real name voting is fair, but the real name voting will also bring a very big hidden danger, that is, settling accounts after selection. If you vote for A, but in the end, B gets the position, then B will definitely hate you in the future, and even put their feet for you everywhere and make trouble for you. If this person is really careful, then he may still be doing everything possible to retaliate against you for this matter many years later. Faced with this kind of person, no one can stand it. Honor at this time very seriously echoed, I also support real name voting. Only real name voting can be more in line with the principles of openness, justice and fairness. Having said that, he immediately raised his hand and said, Since you want to vote, then I will set an example for everyone. I hereby recommend Mr. Tianming Song as the new chairman of the Song Group. I vote for him. Tianming smiled slightly at this time. Since everyone in our board of directors has the right to vote and be elected, then I will vote for myself. I believe I can lead the Song Group to overcome difficulties and create greater glories. Then, someone immediately stated, I also vote for Mr. Tianming. Count me in. Honor said indifferently. In this case, Mr. Tianming has already received 4 votes. Let the others on the scene hurry up and vote. The others murmured to each other for a while, seeing that Tianming had taken control of the situation, and this was a real name voting system, and there was a risk of settling accounts after the fall, so they all expressed their opinions and voted for Tianming. Soon, Tianming's votes reached 9 votes, and the election of the new chairman was already a certainty. At this time, the remaining few who did not vote have realized that the overall situation has been determined, and whether they vote for him or not, they cannot change the result of his election as the new chairman. However, if you don't vote for him at this time, or if you abstain, you will have to beware of him settling scores. As a result, everyone turned their backs and voted for Tianming. In this way, he won 17 votes from 17 people. At this time, Honor opened his mouth and said, "In that case, Mr. Tianming is the new chairman of the Song Group." Everyone applauds and congratulations echoed in the room. After that, Honor took the lead and applauded. Others also echoed and applauded. Tianming waved his hand with a humble expression and said solemnly, "I have self-knowledge. Although my ability is not bad, I am still a bit worse than the former chairman Ms. Warnia. But everyone can rest assured. Since I am elected to this position by everyone, I resolutely implement the basic principle of being in my position and seeking governance, and serve the future development of the Song Group wholeheartedly. I will never do anything irresponsible or detrimental to the group." The others hurriedly applauded and agreed. Tianming smiled slightly and said calmly, "Since we have now selected the new chairman, we will move to the release hall next. I have invited a group of media in advance and notified them that we will elect a new chairman today. In a while, I will just go down to hold a press conference to make the latest decision of the board of directors public. In this way, it can also reassure our investors and stockholders. Do you have any comments? Everyone has voted to elect Tianming as the new chairman, and naturally there will be no objections to such things as attending the press conference." So everyone readily agreed. Tianming said with emotion, "Oh. We were able to reach a consensus so quickly. This is great news for the Song Group. I believe that after the press conference, our stock price will rise quickly." After he finished speaking, he deliberately said with a face, "However, everyone must pay attention. Do not take advantage of the tens of minutes before the press conference to engage in any small actions in the stock market. If any of you is suspected of contacting a trading insider, prompting the Securities Regulatory Commission to come, I will never forgive him." Tianming's unselfish attitude has made all shareholders more or less awed. The stock market is changing rapidly, and anyone who can grasp inside information can make a lot of money. Therefore, the most difficult thing to eliminate is insider trading. For example, if a listed company wants to cooperate deeply with another larger multinational company, once the news is announced, the stock price of the listed company will undoubtedly rise sharply. For ordinary people, they do not know the insider of the company, so they cannot seize the opportunity of insider trading. However, for the executives of this listed company, they must have known this inside story during the in-depth cooperation negotiations. If at this time, they deliberately buy a large amount of their own company stock while the stock price has not risen, and then sell it at a high level after the news is announced and the stock price rises, they can earn a lot of cash. Although this method seems to be very easy to make money, it has clearly violated the regulations of the China Securities Regulatory Commission and belongs to the standard insider trading offense. To bear legal responsibility, there may be sentencing. However, many people still choose to take risks in the face of huge interests. Whether a listed group can stifle this unhealthy trend inside is also the key to whether the group can go further. As soon as Tianming came up, he made it clear that everyone should not engage in any insider trading. That is, he put forward a very clear attitude to everyone, and never allowed anyone to illegally operate in the Song Group and let everyone make money in a regular manner. Being able to say these words also increased his majesty in front of everyone to a certain extent. At the same time, the newsroom of the Song Group was full of invited media. Everyone is very concerned about the recent situation of the Song Group, especially after learning that Warnia, the chairman of the Song Group, has disappeared in Japan. Everyone is very concerned about the progress of the search and rescue of her and the next response plan of the Song Group. The media's sense of smell is very sensitive, so they have long guessed that the Song Group invited them to the press conference today. There is a high probability that the new chairman will be announced at the press conference. After all, no company can stay without a leader for a long time, especially a listed company like the Song Group. Although the press conference has not yet started, people in the media have begun to speculate. At this time, a reporter from a local TV station was whispering in private with a reporter from the provincial TV station. She said to her peers, "The Song family's old man is said to have suffered from Alzheimer's because of the stimulation. I am afraid that the eldest son Tianming is the only one who can really come up to grab the position, so I speculate that this time the Song group appoints the new chairman of the board, it is likely to be him." The person next to him said, "Is it possible that Honor, the eldest grandson of Mr. Song? After all, Mr. Song is young. Mr. Song has already passed his seat to the younger generation of Warnia. The group will still choose a young man to succeed." The local reporter opened his mouth and said, "If this is the case, the new chairman announced today may also be Honor, the son of Tianming." At this time, a staff member of the Song group stepped to the press conference stage and said into the microphone, "Dear friends from the media, please wait a moment. Our board of directors has reached a consensus and made a major decision. Later, the members of the board of directors will jointly attend the press conference and announce the specific content of this decision." When the media reporters on the scene heard this sentence, they all cheered up and looked forward to the appearance of the board members. At this moment, the helicopter carried by Charlie, Warnia and others had already arrived in Oris Hill City. Because there were Ruoli and several other Sioux family members on the helicopter, Charlie asked the helicopter to send them to Shangri-La. Isaac Craven has prepared several very private top-floor rooms for Ruoli and other Sioux family crew members. However, Charlie was still somewhat unreasonable about them, so his request to Isaac Craven was to put these people under house arrest and surveillance. Including Ruoli, anyone in Shangri-La can enjoy comprehensive and meticulous check-in services, including meals and accommodation. However, all the telephones and external communication methods in their rooms were cut off because Charlie temporarily did not allow them to contact the outside world. Ruoli also knew that Charlie still had to be wary of himself now, so naturally he didn't have any opinions on this. After setting up Ruoli and leaving them, Charlie took Warnia and Hashimoto closer to the Song group by helicopter. At the time at the Song group, Tianming had just finished the board meeting. When the meeting ended, he said to everyone, "Everyone will go back to the office and rest for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, we will go down to hold the press conference." Everyone got up and left. Tianming also stepped back to his vice chairman's office. Honor naturally followed him. The father and son stopped involuntarily when they passed Warnia's chairman's office. Tianming glanced at the words, "Chairman's office," on the door, and there was an eager expectation in his eyes. He secretly thought in his heart, "I will move into this chairman's office immediately after I finish the photo shoot for a while." This office of Warnia is not only large in size, but also facing the Yangtze River. The view of the river with large French windows is so beautiful. Many times better than my office. Thinking about this, Tianming said to Honor, "Honor, come to my office." Honor nodded, "Sure Dad." When the father and son entered Tianming's vice chairman's office, Tianming said, "That's the Honor." Isaac Craven said before that Charlie will come to our press conference. "Charlie?" Honor asked in surprise. "Dad, Charlie is back." Tianming said, "I think what he meant by this means he has come back." Honor smiled. "It seems that he went to Japan, but he couldn't find Sioux Warnia's whereabouts." Tianming sneered, "Why is it so easy to find? The old forest in the deep mountains of Nishitama County is not far from the Fuking primeval forest. Warnia's body may have been eaten by the Fuking beasts." Honor nodded, but said with some worry, "Dad, that Charlie is very close to Warnia. I am now worried that he won't let it go. What if he continues to investigate?" Tianming curled his lips and said disdainfully, "Let him investigate. Do whatever he likes to do. The only one Charlie in Oris Hill is still a little capable, but he is not even a Japanese bullish. If he can find out who is the evil, I will chop off his head." The longer Warnia was missing, the more relaxed Tianming's heart became. He felt that with the passage of time, Warnia's chances of survival have become smaller and smaller. Honor is not as open-minded as him. He stood aside and asked in a low voice nervously, "Dad, Charlie still has some tricks. We must be careful not to let him see the clues." Tianming nodded. "This is natural. All we two have to do is to act well." Honor said again, "By the way, Dad, I still feel a little unsure in my heart these past 2 days. Where did Warnia go? How could it be made sure that she is alive or dead?" Tianming sneered, I think Warnia is probably dead, but the body has not been found yet. Honor hurriedly asked, why are you so sure? Tianming said indifferently, pay attention to survival rate, just like a person suddenly disappears. The most likely time to find him is 12 hours after the disappearance. If you don't find him 12 hours after he disappeared, the chances of finding him will be slim as you go later. If it exceeds 24 hours, the probability of finding him is reduced by at least half. If it takes more than 48 hours, the probability of finding him is probably less than 25%. And as time goes by, not only will the chance of finding him become increasingly slim, but his survival rate will also become smaller and smaller. Speaking of this, Tianming said again, by the way, you should often see some hot searches about missing persons on Google. Some people went out for a run and suddenly disappeared, some people got in the car and went to a certain place. Then they disappeared. Honor nodded. There are indeed many hot searches like this, and there will be one every once in a while. Tianming continued, generally speaking, in a situation like, if you can't find people quickly, the end result will be bad luck. There have been many enthusiastic netizens all over the network who are helping to find people, but after a period of time, there is the bad news of the body being found. So I think that if Warnia has been missing for so long, there is a high probability that she should have died. Moreover, people can stay hopeful until they die. There is absolutely no proof of death. What's more, these people weren't killed by us. It was Hashimoto who looked for someone to kill first, so it's even harder to find our heads. The sky is falling. Isn't Hashimoto who is there to hold us first? As long as there is nothing wrong with him, we can sit back and relax. If something really happens to him, we can just run away. Honor was relieved and said with a smile, if this is the case, we will have to contact Hashimoto in the future to ensure that we can grasp his daily routine. Tianming nodded, you're right. For us, Hashimoto is a beacon tower. When you see Hashimoto catching fire and smoking, it proves that we are also in danger. If there is no fire, then we can continue to sit back and relax. After all, Tianming took out his cell phone and called Hashimoto. The call was made quickly. Hashimoto often talks about business all over the world, so his mobile phone has a service similar to global roaming. No matter which country he goes to, he can access communication through the local mobile network. Therefore, even if he is in Oris Hill now, he can still receive calls from Tianming. It just so happened that at this time the plane had landed near the Song group. Charlie heard the phone ringing in Hashimoto's pocket, stretched out his hand and took a look, and saw the 3 characters Tianming written on it. When Japanese people use Chinese characters almost all of their names, they also use Chinese characters when recording Chinese names. When Charlie saw that it was Tianming's call, he immediately said to Hashimoto, if you want to survive, be obedient, otherwise I will send you directly to the kennel today, chopped up and feed the dog. I understand. No. Hashimoto nodded and said with a pleading face, as long as you can spare my life, no matter what you ask me to do, I will do it honestly. Charlie said coldly, connect Tianming's phone, he wants to ask about your recent development, you tell him everything is fine, and let him know that you are still in Japan. Hashimoto nodded immediately like garlic. Seeing his appearance, Charlie knew that he had no guts to deceive himself, so he handed the phone to him, and said coldly, take it now. Hashimoto didn't dare to delay first, and immediately pressed the answer button after receiving the phone. When the phone was connected, Tianming, who could clearly hear the other end of the phone, finally breathed a sigh of relief. He said with emotion, oh, Mr. Hashimoto, what are you doing? Why haven't you answered the phone for so long? Hashimoto hurriedly followed Charlie's instructions, and said, I'm in a meeting, now I'm out of the meeting room to answer your call, what can you do? Tianming smiled and said, there is nothing wrong with me. I just want to ask you how things are going on in Japan. Does Warnia have any news? Is the TMPD still searching for her whereabouts? Hashimoto said, Warnia still has no news, but I think we spent so much effort to murder Warnia at the time. She is now probably dead, and the TMPD is gradually recovering police. I think there is a high probability that this matter will be over, so you don't have to worry about it. When Tianming heard these words, he really felt more at ease, and said with a smile, oh. Mr. Hashimoto is really reliable. As long as Warnia is dead, we really won't have any worries. After finishing speaking, he said hurriedly, "By the way, Mr. Hashimoto, I will hold a press conference soon to officially announce that I will take over the chairmanship of Song Group. Once I officially become chairman, our cooperation can speed up the progress." Hashimoto said quickly, "That's really great. I have already greeted our board of directors. When you formally take over as chairman, we will meet and have a good talk about follow-up cooperation." "The problem," Tianming said excitedly, "Good Mr. Hashimoto." After all, Tianming said again, "I'm sorry, Mr. Hashimoto, it's time for the press conference soon. I won't tell you for now, let's wait for the day of signing the contract, and then thank you in person." Hashimoto said, "Mr. Song doesn't have to be so polite. You can go ahead if you have anything to do, and wait for the rest to talk about the rest." "It is good." Here, Tianming hung up the phone, and immediately looked at Honor with excitement, and said excitedly, "Hashimoto said that the TMPD is about to withdraw the police force. It seems that he has not found any clues." Honor said excitedly, "That's great. As long as they give up searching, then this matter will be fixed." Tianming laughed, stood up, waved his big hand, and said with great interest, Go downstairs to develop the conference. As soon as the press conference opens, I will be the chairman of the Song Group." 10:55 in the morning. Trading in the shares of the Song Group was suddenly suspended. The suspension of stock trading is the suspension of trading. From this moment on, the shares of the Song Group are sealed and will neither rise nor fall until trading is resumed. To apply for a trading suspension to the China Securities Regulatory Commission, there must be sufficient and sufficient reasons. The Song Group's reason for applying for a trading suspension is that the group has major issues to be announced. Generally speaking, listed groups will suspend trading of their stocks before an important event is announced. This is to prevent insider trading and speculation by well-informed people. For example, before, a very famous company on the internet was named Chihu 360. When they seek to go public in the country, they will complete the domestic A-share listing through backdoor. This is the so-called backdoor listing. In layman's terms, some of their conditions do not meet the requirements of the Securities Regulatory Commission for listing, or the normal listing channel is too long, they can't wait, so they can achieve the goal of backdoor listing by purchasing another listed company. 360 is also a relatively well-known internet company in China. The main reason why they choose to go public on the backdoor is to save time. If they go public on their own, they will have to pay at least 1 or 2 years of time cost, and it is likely to miss the market opportunity. At the beginning, when 360 decided to go public with a backdoor, all stockholders were speculating about one thing, that is, which listed company 360 would use to go public. If you can know the target company of her backdoor in advance, then you can buy the company's stock in advance, and you can make a fortune after the 360 backdoor is successful. However, this kind of matter is generally top secret information within the company, and only the absolute top can know it, and they will never disclose it to the outside world. Therefore, when Zhongyan Jiaji suddenly announced that the company had a major business and needed to suspend trading, people knew that 360 was going to be listed on the market through his shell. But by this time I knew that it was too late. Trading in Zhongyan Jiaji's stock had been suspended and could not be traded, and there was no chance to buy bottoms. The current situation of the Song Group is the same. The company is about to transition from a state without a leader to the new chairman. This is definitely good news for the company, so it must first be suspended and then announced. At 10:55, the Song Group announced the hall. The media reporters invited to the scene are already here. Shareholders across the country are also watching this conference. Because since Warnia's accident until now, the Song Group's stock price has been underperforming. The market is worried that the Song Group has no leader, and the square inch is in chaos, which led to the continuous decline of the Song Group's stock. Now, the Song Group suddenly wants to hold a press conference with great fanfare. Everyone feels that they must be ready to announce the new chairman. It was at this time that Charlie came to the door of the release hall alone. After Honor knew that he was coming, he came to the gate in advance to wait. Although he had 10,000 dissatisfaction with Charlie, he really did not dare to provoke Charlie at all in Oris Hill. After all, Master Charlie, who is known as the true dragon in the world, Honor did not dare to neglect. Seeing Charlie coming by himself, Honor hurried forward and said respectfully to him, "Master, you are here." Charlie nodded gently, and said a little apologetically, "Honor, sorry, I tried my best with Warnia." Charlie deliberately only said the 3 words, "trying hard," but did not say any results. Honor heard these words, but directly brought these 3 words to the patient's family when the doctor failed to save the patient, if. Therefore, he immediately made up for what Charlie did not say, and thought to himself, it seems that Charlie did not find any whereabouts of Warnia, and now that he has returned to China, he must have given up to continue searching. As a result, my father and I were finally relieved. Honor's heart was secretly refreshed, but on the face he deliberately pretended to be very painful, and said gratefully, "Master, you went to Japan specially for Warnia's affairs, and you have done so much effort. The Song family is very grateful. If Warnia is really gone, then I believe her spirit in the sky will be moved by your sincerity to her." Charlie looked at Honor and said very seriously, "Honor, many times there is still illusion in my heart, praying that a miracle will happen at a certain moment in the future. What if a miracle really happens at a certain moment in the future? What if Warnia suddenly appears in front of us at some point in the future? Isn't this a happy situation for everyone?" When Honor heard Charlie's words, he felt as uncomfortable as if he had eaten a fly. He couldn't help cursing in his heart, "Pray for a miracle. I pray for your mother's miracle, me. This miracle had better not happen to his mother. Warnia had better never show up in front of me. I don't even bother to see her body, otherwise I have to organize a funeral for her, not only to waste the people and money, but also to pretend to be sad in front of everyone." However, on his face he said piously, "Master, you are right, I also hope that one day, the miracle you said will happen." After speaking, he hurriedly stated, "Master, after today's press conference is over, I will immediately go to Longchen Temple to offer incense and pray for Warnia. Longchen Temple makes a wish especially effective. I often go there to pray and know the abbot there. Let him do a prayer for Warnia." Charlie smiled slightly and said calmly, "Don't be so troublesome, you won't be able to go to Longchen Temple anymore in your life." Honor's whole person was taken aback, and he asked a little surprised, "Master, what do you mean by this?" Charlie patted him on the shoulder and said, "It's nothing, Longchen Temple is violating you." Honor asked in amazement, "Why did I commit a crime with Longchen Temple, Master?" "Longchen Temple is indeed very effective." Charlie said calmly, "Trust me, you will soon find that Longchen Temple is not working at all." Honor was a little unclear. He thought that Charlie was talking about feng shui metaphysics, and asked a little surprised, "Master, are the monks of Longchen Temple all deceiving?" Charlie waved his hand, "It's not necessarily a lie, maybe it's just that the way is not enough." Having said that, Charlie said again, "Okay, don't talk about this, go in quickly, isn't your press conference about to begin?" Honor hurriedly said, "Yes, the press conference will start right away, Master, come in quickly." Under the leadership of Honor, Charlie stepped into the press conference venue. Honor arranged him in the VIP seat in the first row, and then said apologetically, "Excuse me, Master, I have to participate in the release. Yes, I won't be here with you. If you have any needs, just ask the staff." Charlie nodded. "Okay, go ahead." Honor said diligently, "Good Master Lei Wade, then I'll go ahead and please." After speaking, he turned around and went to the backstage lounge. A few minutes later, a female secretary stepped onto the rostrum and said, "Thank you for the arrival of distinguished guests and friends from the media. Today, our song group has very important things to be released to the public. Please applaud and invite us. Member of the Board of Directors." After the female secretary finished speaking, there was thunderous applause from the audience. More than a dozen members of the song group's board of directors entered through the side door one after another. Charlie didn't know the people who walked in the front. Until the last two, it was Honor and his father Tianming. Although Tianming was the last to enter the venue, the middle position on the rostrum was always vacant for him. After he took the stage, he sat directly in the middle position. As soon as he sat down, he saw Charlie in the first row of VIP seats. Seeing Charlie, Tianming's heart was the same as Honor, somewhat nervous. As the so-called guilty conscience, he also worried that what he did would happen one day. He was especially afraid of Charlie, because Charlie had become the biggest hidden danger in his mind. If one day, his affairs are revealed, he is not even afraid of the police coming to the door, but he is afraid that Charlie will come to him to settle the account. When Charlie's eyes were facing each other, Tianming was a little pleased and nodded at him. Charlie also smiled. Charlie's smile dissipated a lot of tension in Tianming's heart. He turned on the desktop microphone in front of him and said, "Dear distinguished guests, shareholders, investors, and friends from the media present, hello everyone. I am Tianming. I was formerly the vice chairman of the Song Group. When Ms. Warnia suffered an accident in Japan, I was temporarily elected by the board of directors as acting chairman, temporarily replacing Ms. Warnia to exercise the power of chairman on the board." Speaking of this, Tianming sighed softly. "Hey. Ms. Warnia's accident caused me and the entire board of directors to feel very heartbroken. We have also been making solemn representations to the Japanese side, asking them to investigate as soon as possible. To clarify the truth of the accident and find out the whereabouts of Miss Warnia, we also hope that the Japanese side can report back to us a happy result as soon as possible." Tianming paused, his painting style changed, and he said in a serious tone, "However, for a listed group with a market value of more than 100 billion yuan, we must not be in a state of no leader for a long time. Before Miss Warnia returns safely, we must to ensure the normal operation of the Song Group. Therefore, our board of directors held a board meeting this morning." When everyone in the audience heard this, they raised their ears and waited expectantly for his next content. Because this is the highlight of everyone's attention, Tianming cleared his throat at this time and announced very seriously, after the board of directors discussed and voted, Ms. Warnia will be temporarily removed from the position of chairman of the Song Group. At the same time, the board of directors has passed a real name vote. I personally have 17 people on the board. In China, 17 votes were obtained, so from now on, I will formally take over as chairman of the Song Group. Everyone is waiting for this sentence. Although they speculate that the Song Group should announce the new chairman today, this matter must be told from the Song Group's board of directors to be fully evidenced. Now that Tianming himself has admitted personally, this matter has been confirmed and can be directly released as news. However, at this moment, Charlie suddenly spoke and asked indifferently, "Mr. Song, Ms. Warnia is just missing now, and the news of her murder has not been confirmed. I would like to ask you, if Miss Warnia returns safely one day, will you return the chairman's seat to her?" Tianming originally thought that today is a very, very simple transition of power. Moreover, he also felt that he had already conquered the entire board of directors, so the rest was just an announcement. In this case, no one could cause trouble. But he never dreamed that Charlie would suddenly attack himself at this moment. Although he was very angry in his heart, he still said very politely, "You can rest assured that when our board of directors met today for discussion, we have established a basic principle. Although I have now voted by the board of directors to formally take over as director of the Song Group long term, but I also have to admit that Ms. Song is actually a far more suitable chairman candidate than me." Speaking of this, Tianming continued to say loudly, "So, I also solemnly announce to everyone here, once Miss Warnia returns safely, I will return the position of chairman to her as soon as possible. After all, she is the most suitable candidate to be the chairman of the Song Group." Everyone applauded at this moment, feeling that Tianming's ability to have these words is enough to prove that this person's vision, character and heart are very outstanding. When Tianming triumphantly accepted the applause of the crowd, Charlie said, "Since Mr. Song said so, then directly return the position of chairman to Ms. Warnia." Seeing Charlie's aggressive appearance, Tianming was very annoyed and cursed secretly, "Damn, did Charlie take some gunpowder today? Why the FCUK can't get through with me? Let me return the position to Warnia now. I can change, but what about Warnia and others? Isn't you Charlie very capable? Are you not known as the real dragon on earth? If you really have this ability, why didn't you bring Warnia back alive?" When Tianming thought of this, his heart was full of irritation, but he still said very seriously, "I have said just now, my personal conscious ability is no match for Miss Warnia, so I very much hope to be able to work under Miss Warnia. If Ms. Warnia was able to return to China safely." Tianming voluntarily abdicated to be a virtuous person and returned to the position of vice chairman of the Song Group. Charlie smiled indifferently, Well, since you have said so yourself, in front of so many people, don't break your promise. Tianming said coldly with a bit of uncontrollable displeasure. Don't worry, I, Tianming, speak my words and never break my words. As soon as the voice fell, the door of the conference venue was pushed open vigorously by several men in black. Seeing more than a dozen uniformly dressed men in black split into two teams on the left and right and lined up to enter the venue, everyone was a little dumbfounded. Tianming sternly reprimanded, "Who are you? What are you doing here? I tell you, this is the internal venue of our song group. You are legally responsible for breaking in like this. What about the security? Come here. Drive them all out." At this moment, a beautiful woman wearing a small black suit and black high-heeled shoes stepped in. As soon as this woman entered the door, everyone at the scene was struck by lightning and stood there. I saw the woman walked into the meeting place smartly, her eyes fixed on Tianming, and she asked loudly, "They are all my people, who is qualified to drive them away?" Tianming felt that the sky had fallen for a moment. Because this woman who is talking is his niece, Warnia. Chapter 2181. When Warnia appeared, everyone except Charlie was shocked. No one could imagine that Warnia, who has been missing and whose life or death has been unknown, suddenly appeared at the press conference. You know, in the last second, the song group was unable to confirm whether Warnia was still alive, so it held a special board meeting and announced the appointment of Tianming as the new chairman. However, in the next second, Warnia came back suddenly. Almost everyone can't accept such a big plot turn, and everyone is afraid that this doesn't even happen in movies. Of these, most denying, naturally, is Tianming, who has just succeeded the chairman of the song group. At this time, Tianming, looking at Warnia, was already distraught. His eyes were big and red, and he was still covered with bloodshot eyes. The pair of eyeballs almost stared out of the eye sockets. He couldn't believe that Warnia could return to China from Japan alive. He couldn't help but secretly say in his heart, since she is still alive, why doesn't even the Japanese police know about it? The current Japanese police, although they have begun to reduce the manpower searching for Warnia, they still haven't completely given up searching for her whereabouts, but she bypassed them and returned home quietly. What is she doing? More importantly, since she is still alive, why has she never contacted me in the old song? She has a deep relationship with her grandfather. Even if she doesn't believe in him, she can't even doubt the old one, right? Could it be? Did she realize something? Thinking of this, Tianming panicked to death. Honor on the side was even more startled and scared at this time. He also didn't understand how Warnia survived, let alone how she returned to China. Now, there has been a lot of rumors about her in China and Japan, and everyone knows it. With her current popularity, it would never be possible for her to return home quietly unless someone with great magical powers secretly helps her. At this point, Honor immediately looked at Charlie, who was smiling in the first row of VIP seats. At this moment, he felt a little bit in his heart, and a thought suddenly appeared. Could it be? Is it Charlie? Yes, it must be him. No wonder he came back from Japan so easily. If it is not certain that Warnia is safe, how could he give up searching? Moreover, only he has the ability to bring Warnia back from Japan without anyone knowing it. No wonder he has to come to the song group's press conference. It turns out that he is secretly manipulating all this. Thinking of this, Honor was also scared to death. He was afraid that Charlie already knew what he had planned with his father. In that case, Charlie would definitely not let them go. At this time, all the media's attention was focused on Warnia. From beginning to end, no reporter noticed Charlie, who was sitting in the first row with his head facing them. At this moment, the shutter sound of the camera on the scene crackled like firecrackers. Warnia walked towards the rostrum under the gaze of everyone. Countless reporters stretched out their microphones at this time. Some reporters spoke hurriedly and asked some crazy questions. Miss Song, I am a reporter from Zhongyan Finance and Economics. I would like to ask, how did you escape the crash in Japan? Are you reborn? Warnia stopped, smiled slightly, and said, when the accident happened, I happened to be not in the car. Someone asked, then Miss Song, since you were not in the car, the Japanese police have been searching for your whereabouts for so many days. Why have you not shown up? Warnia replied, I didn't show up because I suspected that the accident I encountered was caused deliberately. For my personal safety, I didn't disclose it to the public. As soon as this was said, everyone at the scene took a breath. The accident that Warnia encountered was caused by someone. If this is true, wouldn't that person want to murder her? In that way, the nature of this matter has risen from a traffic accident to a murder with extremely cruel methods and extremely serious consequences. Tianming and Honor were even more shocked. If Warnia really has the evidence of their crimes, then it will be over for them. Although this case was committed in Japan, the person who died, in this case, was a Chinese national, and the person behind the scenes was also a Chinese national, so this must be sanctioned by Chinese law. In China, planning homicide is one of the most serious crimes. Even if they pretended it to be a traffic accident, did not use any weapons, and did not directly kill other people in the car, it was still very serious in nature. Therefore, even if the death penalty can be avoided, the father and son must at least be sentenced to life imprisonment. The richer the person, the more afraid they are of going to jail. While in case of poor, they even commit crimes, seeking a place to live in prison and a bite to eat. Especially in Japan, a country with a very serious aging, many elderly people have no choice but to embark on the path of crime because they have no way to provide for the elderly. But this is definitely not the case for the rich. They own the world's top luxury cars, airplanes, yachts, and the world's top luxury mansions. They alone enjoy the meticulous service of a few or even dozens of people, and their lives are like paradise on earth. To send such people to jail is more uncomfortable than killing them. After all, in the prison, they are treated equally, whether you are a homeless person who is so poor that there is no place to sleep and eat or a super rich person who is rich and wealthy in an enemy country. Once in prison, everyone is likely to live in the same cell and eat with the same pot, rice every day. Therefore, Tianming and Honor were almost panicked in their hearts. Warnia did not answer any questions from the media reporters at this time. She stepped onto the rostrum and came to the front of Uncle Tianming. Tianming was so scared that his scalp was numb, and even severe tinnitus appeared in his ears. He thought Warnia would send him suddenly, but he didn't expect that. Warnia just smiled at him and said very politely, "Uncle, these days, I worry about you." Tianming breathed a sigh of relief as soon as she said this. He secretly said in his heart, like a new life, "My God, I was almost scared to death. It seems that Warnia still doesn't know that all this is my mastery. God bless me, amen, amen." Honor next to him also immediately relaxed, and his tight nerves almost broke at the moment Warnia approached. Fortunately, Warnia didn't seem to be targeting the father and son. After Tianming breathed a sigh of relief, he rejoiced and said, "Oh Warnia, I was counting these days when you were away, my heart and liver were aching. Your grandpa is also a source of worry due to sudden brain disease." Speaking of this, Tianming sighed, "Hey, it's okay, it's fine if you come back, it's fine if you come back." As soon as he finished speaking, his eyes were red, and 2 lines of tears shed unexpectedly. Charlie in the audience watched Tianming's actor-level performance with cold eyes, and said in his heart, "Tianming, do you think you have survived the disaster? In fact, your nightmare has just begun." At this time Tianming was still imagining that what he had done was not revealed. At the same time, he was also secretly thinking, it doesn't matter if this damn Warnia comes back, anyway, now that the old thing has become demented, she has no backing in the Song group, and he can fix her in the future. There are going to be many opportunities. At this time, Warnia looked at Tianming and asked loudly, "Uncle, I heard that the board of directors elected you as the new chairman because I am not here." Tianming rubbed his hands in embarrassment, and chuckled, "Hee hee, this thing, hey, everyone also thinks that the group can't be a group without a leader, so I was recommended by them to replace you." Warnia nodded and said seriously, "That's really good. Thank you uncle for your concern about me." As she said that, she changed her conversation and asked, "Uncle, you just said that if I come back, you will automatically return the chairman's position to me, should this be counted?" Tianming looked around awkwardly. Damn, there is such a crowd of media reporters down here, as well as the Batlle-starred Charlie. What I said just now, I can't repent in front of them, otherwise once the media reports, I will immediately become notorious. Moreover, what's more terrible is that Charlie, a Batlle-starred, is not easy to deal with. In Oris Hill, he is master who is admired by thousands of people, and there are countless fans behind him. Warnia was rescued by him. If I am not letting go of the chairman's position at this time, Charlie will not let me go. It seems that at the moment I can only retreat and give way first. Thinking of this, Tianming's heart was bleeding, and he couldn't help cursing deep down in his heart. This is really FC King nonsense. He deliberately wanted to be the chairman of the board. As a result, it's going to be cold within a few minutes after he officially takes the stage. I haven't sat in the chairman's office for even a second. However, even if there is a reservoir of unwillingnesses in his heart, he dare not make any troubles at this time. He could only bite the bullet and said, Warnia, don't worry, the chairmanship of the song group is yours. I will only help you with some important affairs when you need me. Now that you are back, then this position will naturally be returned to you. After all, he picked up the microphone and said solemnly, now, I announce that the position of chairman of the song group will continue to be held by Ms. Warnia. I believe this is also the best solution in the eyes of shareholders and investors. Come, everyone applaud. The audience thundered with applause. Warnia nodded at this time, picked up the microphone, and said to everyone in the audience, thank you for coming to the song group today. This is the end of today's press conference. Next, I will preside over the meeting of the board of directors. The members of the board of directors touched on the various affairs that occurred within the group during my absence because there are many commercial secrets involved, so please leave the media friends first, thank you. The media reporters had already caught the big news about Warnia's return to China. At this time, they were all eagerly thinking about going back to write and publish the news, so they immediately packed their equipment and left the scene in an orderly manner. Tianming and Honor looked at each other, and the father and son were more or less worried in their hearts. The two of them didn't know what Warnia wanted to do for the board meeting. If it's just a routine board of directors meeting, it's better to say that everyone should report to her what happened in the past few days, and it's almost the same. But if Warnia already knew something, it would be tricky to deal with them both on this board. So Tianming deliberately asked, Warnia, do you have any plans to convene the board of directors? Warnia smiled slightly. Uncle, don't worry, I will confirm many things later when we have a meeting. Tianming nodded nervously. Soon, all the media reporters left the scene. In the audience of the entire press conference, only Charlie sat here alone. Tianming was a little nervous, pretending to be embarrassed and said, well, master. Warnia is going to hold a board of directors meeting. This may involve some of the song group's trade secrets, so please excuse us for the time being. Charlie smiled calmly. Don't worry, Mr. Song, today's board of directors has no commercial secrets. Tianming felt even more nervous as if playing a drum. He thought to himself, what does Charlie mean by this? How can it be made as if he knows everything? At this time, the door of the conference hall was pushed open, and nearly 40 men in black filed in. The directors of the song group were all taken aback by the battle arrangement before them. Tianming yelled nervously, who are you? Who let you in? Where is the security? Get all these people out quickly. Honor also hurriedly rebuked. You better leave by yourself, otherwise we will call the police. Charlie, who has not spoken much, said calmly at this time, Tianming, they are all arranged by me, do you have any problem? Tianming was shocked and blurted out, wait. Master, these people are all arranged by you. What do you intend to achieve? Charlie said calmly, I arranged these people to support Warnia. She has just returned to the song group. If no one is supporting her, I am afraid she will be bullied. Tianming hurriedly turned his head, looked at Warnia, and said seriously, Warnia, the group is where the work is done. What do you trouble master for bringing so many people in black to come over? If you don't know, think they are all marginalized people. If it spreads out, it will affect the group too badly. Let them leave quickly. Warnia ignored him, her expression was already somewhat cold, and she sternly said, I am still the chairman of the song group. I have the final say on everything here. Tianming did not expect that Warnia's attitude would suddenly become bad, and he immediately said annoyed, even if you are the chairman of the board, you are only elected by the board of directors. If you do not comply with the rules, the board of directors has the power to dismiss you at any time. Warnia sneered, remove me. When Grandpa appointed me as chairman, he already gave me all the voting rights of the board of directors. As long as I am on the board of directors, you don't have any voting rights. No one can dismiss me. I can dismiss any of you at any time. You. Tianming's angry chest continued to rise and fall, and he gritted his teeth. Warnia. Don't go too far. Do you think I don't know how you poured the ecstasy soup for the old man? When your grandfather gave you the chairmanship, there were already signs of Alzheimer's. Otherwise, how could it be possible to hand over the Song group to you, a female in the whole family? Alzheimer's disease is definitely not a cold or fever coming up in a day. Your grandfather is sick now, there must have been early signs. Since he has had Alzheimer's for a long time when he authorized you, he was already a person who does not have the ability to execute orders independently. All the decisions he makes are open to discussion. Don't worry, I will appeal to the court to reject all the decisions he made at the time. Return all voting rights to the board of directors. Warnia sneered. You want to appeal to the court? That's right, I also have something to tell the judicial department. Before that, I will introduce an old friend to you. After that, she immediately turned around and respectfully said to Charlie, Master, I have to trouble you to give an order. Charlie nodded, and said to the group of people in black, bring them up. Yes. Several people in black responded in unison, and immediately went out and walked in with a man in handcuffs. When Tianming and Honor saw this person, their souls frightened and disappeared. This person is actually the vice president of Japan's Nippon Steel Group, Hashimoto. At the moment they saw Hashimoto's approach, Tianming and Honor almost immediately made their legs weak. At this moment, both father and son realized that they had already been caught. Otherwise, Charlie would never be silent. While bringing Warnia back, he also brought back Hashimoto. The murder of Warnia in Japan was completely a dirty business between the father and son and Hashimoto in private. Tianming and Honor, the father and son, wanted to kill Warnia to inherit the entire Song family's assets. And Hashimoto wanted to obtain greater private benefits through cooperation with the father and son. A reward of hundreds of millions of dollars, and at least 10 points of shares. All this was enough to drive Hashimoto to take risks. Before Hashimoto appeared, the father and son used him as their own firewall. In their opinion, as long as Hashimoto has not spilled the beans, the two of them are absolutely safe. But they never dreamed that Charlie actually moved this source of trouble all the way from Japan. At this time, the Song family did not dare to say anything, but the other directors of the board recognized Hashimoto's and couldn't help asking, isn't this Nippon Steel's vice president, Mr. Hashimoto? Warnia, how could you kidnap Mr. Hashimoto to Oris Hill? Charlie stood up at this moment and said loudly, I tied Hashimoto here first, do you have any comments? Seeing that Charlie was not kidding, and his tone was a little serious, he immediately persuaded him. He was just a small shareholder in the Song group, and he didn't dare to provoke Charlie at all. Tianming's face was already full of cold sweat at this time. He kept wiping, but the speed of wiping was simply not as fast as to cope with the flow of sweat. Honor also frightened his legs straight. After the Dongchuang incident, he didn't know what punishment he would face next. Charlie stepped up to Hashimoto at this time, and said coldly, Mr. Hashimoto, tell everyone what happened. Hashimoto tremblingly said, Mr. Wade, the whole thing is entirely the masterminded by Tianming and Honor. They promised high returns to lure me into it. I helped them kill Ms. Warnia in Japan. I arranged the traffic accident according to their will and killed two of Ms. Song's assistants and a driver. The father and son are the culprits. As soon as these words came out, the audience was shocked. None of these shareholders expected that Warnia's disappearance some time ago turned out to be a murder case behind the scenes. Tianming's face is pale in fright, and he tremblingly said, Hashimoto, you don't want to talk about it here. Me, when did I ask you to kill Warnia? Warnia is my niece. How could I kill her? I think, it's obvious that you are guilty of your own evil intentions. At this time, you are going to pour dirty water on me, you. What are your intention? Honor also reprimanded with a trembling voice, that's right. Hashimoto, you're FC King little piece of shish. You have come to Oris Hill to rant, believe me or not, I will tear your mouth and break your jaws. Hashimoto yelled angrily, I have been hurt so badly by you two dogs, you two still want to get into trouble. Having said that, he immediately took out his cell phone, found a recording, and said coldly, "Everyone, listen to this pair of dogs, how did they murder Miss Song?" Afterwards, he immediately clicked play button. On the phone, Honor's voice came. "Oh, Mr. Hashimoto, my sister has already planned to leave for Japan tomorrow. My father asked me to ask you, have you arranged everything there? This time, you must make sure there is no way she goes back." Hashimoto smiled and said, "Don't worry, Mr. Song, I have prepared in advance according to your instructions, and I will do it without leaving a trace and no one will doubt you." Quote, Honor said with satisfaction, "That's really great. After Warnia's death, we will definitely make greater concessions in our cooperation with your company, and all the personal benefits promised to you will be honored. I look forward to it. Our in-depth cooperation in the future will get stronger each day." Hashimoto laughed and said, "Don't worry, Mr. Song, please also tell your father Mr. Tianming. I Hashimoto will take care of these things personally. Don't worry, I promise Warnia will never return after coming to Japan." Quote, Honor said excitedly, "Okay. Great. Then I'm waiting for Mr. Hashimoto's good news." Hearing this, Tianming was completely panicked. He pointed at Hashimoto and yelled angrily, "Hashimoto, you damn little thing, you are really not trustworthy in doing things. You don't have the guts to get things done. Even dared to record secretly, you are a fucking damn boy." Hashimoto also responded with an angry roar, "Fuke Tianming your mother. I used to live very well in Japan by virtue of the position of Nippon Steel's vice president. I was standard upper-class elite but was caught because of you and your son, to be it stards, you dragged me down the water. If it weren't for you, I would have been better today." Honor hurriedly looked at Charlie at this time, knelt on the ground with a puff, and choked up, "Master, this was my dad's idea. I completely obeyed his instructions, please. Take it as mistake of my youth and ignorance, please forgive me this time." Honor's sudden kneeling shocked his father Tianming and Hashimoto. Tianming never dreamed that his son would betray him without hesitation at the most critical moment, and he immediately separated himself from him. At this moment, he was furious in his heart and wanted to scold Honor, but the next second, he swallowed it in his mouth. Although he was bleeding in his heart, he still comforted himself. It is understandable to do so with Honor. Since this incident has already happened, and Charlie and dozens of people in black are sitting here, I am definite that it may not come back again. In this case, rather than standing up to them, it is better to bend and save my son. If this is the case, at least the entire army will not be wiped out." Thinking of this, he sighed desperately, and said, "Master, I planned the whole thing by myself. The honor is only at my request to help me communicate with Hashimoto in the middle. So if you want to punish, please punish me alone, don't involve the honor, please." After finishing speaking, he immediately knelt on the ground, kept kowtow at Charlie, and shouted, "Master, I beg you. Please." After speaking, he choked up and cried bitterly. Charlie saw all this in his eyes, and said coldly, "Save it, you father and son, and Hashimoto's approach, all of them count as one, no one can escape." After that, Charlie cleared his throat, and said, "I shouldn't be adept at your Song family matters, so I asked Mr. Song to come out to be a witness." At this point, Charlie snapped his fingers and said loudly, "Come on, please Mr. Song." Originally, Tianming and Honor father and son were already in a nervous breakdown. Hearing that Charlie was about to invite Mr. Song, the two of them trembled violently as if struck by lightning. At this time, the common subtext in the hearts of the father and son is, isn't the old man already suffering from dementia? He can't even control his bowel and urine. Why did Charlie get him here at this time? Tianming felt a little bit uncomfortable. Desperately thought in his heart, could it be that the old things have been restored to their original condition? Isn't this all over? As he was thinking, the Song family's chief butler, Yu Bo, accompanied Mr. Song and walked in. At this time, Mr. Song, with a vigorous body and a cold complexion, did not seem to have Alzheimer's. Tianming and Honor were even more frightened and flustered. They couldn't understand in any case. Why did Mr. Song, who was still in the hospital this morning and peeing his pants in front of them, is now back? As soon as Mr. Song entered the conference hall, he glared at the father and son Tianming and Honor with fierce eyes, and angrily reprimanded, "Bast at RD. Do you two think you can cover the sky with your hands? You dared to murder and even dared to give me medicine. Do you not have the slightest humanity? Tianming's, a scared soul, was not possessed, and he knelt all the way to Father Song, crying and said, "Dad, I'm wrong, Dad, I should die. I have an evil heart, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me once, Dad." Old man Song yelled angrily, "Spare you? You still have the face to ask me to spare you? Do you know, in the family law formulated by my ancestors of the Song family, what you committed is a capital crime?" Tianming cried and said, "Dad, I did make a big mistake, but I was forced to be helpless." "You filth!" Old man Song roared. Zan even raised his hand and slapped Tianming. Tianming covered his face and cried, "Dad, think about it, I am your eldest son. The eldest son. According to the rules of our ancestors since ancient times, the eldest son should inherit the position, but why don't you let me be Song patriarch? Why let Warnia, a yellow-haired girl, be the patriarch of the Song family? If you let me be the patriarch of the Song family, why would I make such a big mistake?" Old Song anxious raised his hand and slapped Tianming again. "You damn thing. You still find all kinds of excuses. If it wasn't for Master's generous help and strategizing, Warnia would have been killed by your father and son. I was poisoned by you to become Alzheimer's. Do you think you can justify this matter?" Honor, in order to protect himself, cried and said to Grandpa Song, "Grandpa, I always follow Dad's instructions. He arranged for me to do everything. Please see that I am your progeny, the eldest grandson, for that sake, spare me this time." Mr. Song pointing to Honor, angrily, "Brazen, no kidding," adding insult to injury. "The father so is the scum son like you." He looked at the father and son and said coldly, "You two are the scum of the Song family. If you commit such a serious crime, you must face the consequences according to the family law. It is useless for anyone to intercede." Then he looked at Yu Bo beside him. He blurted out, "Old Yu, you have been in the Song family for many years. Tell me, according to the Song family's family law, how should these two people be handled?" Yu Bo sternly said, "According to the first article of the Song family's family law, those who try to kill the father must be killed." Honor almost fainted in fright, crying, "Grandpa! Now it is a modern society under the rule of law, not the feudal society from old times. You have no right to kill us. If you do, you will be shooting yourself in the foot." Tianming also choked up, "Dad, if you don't want to spare us, then send us to the judicial department. Let the judicial department try it impartially, no matter how many years they sentence us to, we all will accept that." Tianming knew very well in his heart that even if his and his son's crimes were prosecuted, they would never touch the boundaries of the death penalty. He thought to himself, "After all, my son and I didn't kill people with our own hands. The real killers were the murderers like Hashimoto from Japan. At that time, if I can actively compensate the families of the three victims and get their understanding, the court will definitely lower the sentence on us, father and son will be in a better position. Just pay 20 to 30 million to one family. It's really impossible for one family to earn 50 million. The family members who paid the compensation can wake up with a dream, and they will actively issue a letter of understanding and help us father and son intercede with the court." Mr. Song also knew very well in his heart that now it is not a feudal society anymore, and the family law of the feudal period is definitely not applicable now. Therefore, he could not really let people kill Tianming, Honor and his son in front of so many people. Moreover, step back 10,000 steps. Even if the law doesn't care, Mr. Song really doesn't deal with it. He really hates the father and son. However, the blood of the Song family is flowing through the father and son. The Song family was originally not prosperous enough. If he really killed them, let's not say that he couldn't bear it, and he would have no face to face his ancestors after death. In fact, this is the case with parents all over the world. Even if you know your child is a ferocious wolf, you can't wait to cut off your own flesh to feed it. How can you be willing to kill him yourself? The old man Song was very entangled in his heart. At a certain moment, he even thought that he could simply hand over the two people to the judicial organs, and let the judicial organs sentence them to 10 or 20 years, or even indefinitely, which would be regarded as killing the people. However, he immediately thought of Charlie again. He thought in his heart, this time, Master made the move entirely because of Warnia. If I can't satisfy Master with the result of my handling of this matter, doesn't it mean that I have offended Master? Thinking of this, he immediately turned to look at Charlie, and said respectfully, Master. The Song family has suffered from these two evil obstacles, and it is all thanks to you to turn the tide, otherwise, I, Old Song, and my granddaughter Warnia would be dead. There would be no place for burial, and now these two evil barriers are here. If you want to kill or cut, I will listen to and accept your words, Mr. Wade. When Tianming heard this, he kowtows to Charlie and cried, Master, please hold your hands high and hand us over to the judicial organs. Honor also cried bitterly and pleaded, Master, we father and son are not worth your time wasting, so you can hand us over to the judicial authorities and let the law sanction us. Honor also realized in his heart that although the sentence was painful, as long as he could live is the best. At that time, I and my dad can spend more money, clear up the relationship, and get some special care in prison. In this way, life will not be too sad. Charlie smiled lightly at this time, looked at Warnia, and asked, Warnie, what do you think? Warnia's heart was also full of entanglements at time. She naturally hated Tianming and Honor the father-son duo. However, she doesn't want to decide the matter of their life and death. She really doesn't want to kill them. On the one hand, it is because they are all relatives after all and are related by blood. On the other hand, she was also worried that doing things too terribly would make Grandpa Song sad. Warnia knows her grandfather very well. She knows that Grandpa is strict, and at this time she also hates her uncle and cousin very much. However, she also knew that in Grandpa's heart, blood was always thicker than water, and he would not really hope to punish the uncle and cousin with death. Thinking of this, she looked at Charlie and said sincerely, Master, although they have done a lot of wrong things, they are from the Song family after all and are my blood relatives. I still hope you can keep them alive. As soon as this was said, all three of the people on the scene let out a sigh of relief. In addition to Tianming and Honor, there is also Song Jimo, the father of Song. Although Tianming and Honor need not say much, for them, Warnia's words are tantamount to spare their lives. For Mr. Song, he was really afraid that Warnia would kill the father and son because of hatred. But in front of Charlie, he didn't dare to make it clear that he wanted to protect the lives of the father and son, so the life and death of the father and son were completely in the hands of Warnia. Now, hearing Warnia say this, he was naturally relaxed. Tianming kowtows towards Warnia excitedly, and choked up, Warnia, your uncle will always remember your kind words. Honor also cried and said, Warnia, thank you for your kindness. Charlie had also anticipated this result long ago, and looked at Tianming and Honor, who were full of survivor's bliss, and said calmly, since Warnia has said that I should spare you, I naturally mean to respect her. Speaking of this, Charlie said sternly, but as the saying goes, living sins are inevitable, and death sins are hard to forgive. Although you two can be spared, yet you still have to accept sufficient punishment. Tianming hurriedly said, Master. Honor and I are willing to go to the police station to surrender now and let the law decide everything. Honor also nodded again and again, yeah, Master, my dad and I will surrender now. Immediately, Charlie sneered and said, you two think very beautifully. Let the two of you surrender and when you plot to surrender. This way, the sentence will naturally be more lenient. Tianming hurriedly said, Master, you have a large heart. Even if we have a plot to surrender, we will have to sentence at least 10 years. Charlie waved his hand, forget it, don't surrender, there is no need to solve it through legal channels. When Grandpa Song heard this, he asked, Master, what do you mean? Charlie said, I can't believe the father and son, even if they are sent to prison, they might still threaten Warnia's life in the future, so I thought of another solution that can keep their life, and can put an end to their threats to Warnia. Tianming asked nervously, Master Wade, what is the solution? Charlie said loudly, Tianming, I plan to send you too far away and send you to a strange place so that you can never come back again. When Tianming and Honor heard this, they thought of the Wei family's father and son together in their minds for the first time. Because of offending Charlie, the father and son are still at the foot of Changbai Mountain. This winter is extremely cold. The temperature at the foot of Changbai Mountain is -20 to 30 degrees below zero or even lower. They really don't know how the father and son survived until now. Thinking of the harsh and unforgiving environment at the foot of Changbai Mountain, Honor cried and said, Master Wade, I beg you to raise your hands and let us go to jail. We really don't want to go to the cold place of Changbai Mountain. Charlie sneered and said, "Don't worry, I won't let you go to Changbai Mountain. I have other arrangements for you." After that, he said loudly, "Isaac Craven, come in." Outside the door, Isaac immediately stepped forward and asked respectfully, "Master Wade, what do you want?" Charlie said, "Isaac, I heard that you invested in a diamond mine in Africa before." "Yes." Isaac nodded, and said, "I did invest in a diamond mine, and that diamond mine is in Sierra Leone, Africa." Charlie asked him, "How is the environment over there?" Isaac smiled and said, "That ghost place is in West Africa, one of the least developed countries in the world. It has been ranked first in the world for many consecutive years. It is so poor that you can't even imagine. And the climatic conditions of that ghost place are also very poor. It belongs to a tropical monsoon climate. The temperature is very high all year round. The highest temperature is above 40 degrees, and the lowest temperature is 15 degrees. It is wet and hot. Eczema occurs, and that ghost place is full of mosquitoes and all kinds of infectious diseases. If it weren't for the diamond mines in that place, I'm afraid it would be over." When Tianming and Honor heard this, they were already shaking with fear. Charlie said with a smile on his face, "According to you, this Sierra Leone is really a good place for an exile." Having said that, he pointed to Tianming and Honor and said with a smile, "Well, Craven, you send the father and son to Sierra Leone overnight, arrange to your diamond mine, let them go to the river with the local workers, pick up diamonds, take care of food and shelter, but never give them a penny of wages. In addition, make sure their food and lodging conditions are exactly the same as those of the local workers. At the same time, they will be sent to keep an eye on them so that in the next 20 years, they will never come back again. As for whether they can come back in 20 years, it depends on their performance in these 20 years." As soon as these words came out, Tianming and Honor almost fainted. Tianming cried and said, Master Wade, please spare us our life. In the ghost place in Sierra Leone, father and I will die of dysentery or other infectious diseases within a few months at most. It is better to shoot us directly up." Isaac smiled and said, "Mr. Song, don't have to worry. Although the natural and human conditions in Africa are indeed very backward, we Chinese entrepreneurs who invest in Africa are still very humane. We have professional doctors on every construction site. The stock of medicine is also very sufficient, which can definitely guarantee your health." Honor wailed loudly, "I don't want to go to Africa. I don't want to go to Sierra Leone. I don't want to go to that kind of ghost place to dig diamonds. Please, send me to prison. I am a criminal, let the law punish me, please." Tianming also kept begging at this time, "Master Wade, have mercy, let us surrender." Charlie sneered, "Do you think you still have the right to choose? It's just a dream." Immediately, he looked at Isaac and ordered, "Mr. Isaac, let your subordinates take them down immediately, and arrange a plane to take them to Sierra Leone as soon as possible. Best if they could leave in the afternoon."